Are you in a band? Are you an entertainment entrepreneur? Are you a musician, songwriter, or producer? Or are you wanting to start a career in the music industry? If so, then this podcast is for you. On the Do That Music Thing podcast, we'll be interviewing subject matter experts, artists, and other leaders in the music industry to identify actionable strategies to move you forward in your career, spark some inspiration, and at the least just have some fun talking about music. So let's get to it and do that music thing. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Do That Music Thing podcast, where we talk to innovators and the best in the business to help move your career forward in the music industry. Whether you're a songwriter, whether you're an artist, a band, a manager, A&R, you want to get into publishing, we're interviewing the best folks that have the best insight on how to move your career forward. And today I have a wonderful guest I've known for a long time. He's a really good friend. On the show today, I have Brandon Trammel. He is an artist and illustrator specializing in concert posters and prints. He's worked with some really incredible artists and names that you've probably heard of. Artists in bands like Umphreys McGee, Gov't Mule, and Papadosio. How's it going, Brandon?
Hey, Chris, what's up?
Super glad to have you on the show. It's been awesome to watch, your career as a artist for concert illustrations and album art just explode. It's been really fun to watch. Tell us a little bit, though, about your story and how you ended up becoming a graphic designer and then into artistic illustration for album art and concert posters.
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me. It's kind of like there's a lot of back and forth over the past 10 years. So actually, I went to school for printmaking, fine arts with a focus in printmaking, and really sort of honed in on lithography and etching, some of the oldest forms of printmaking there are, been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I sort of stayed there because I liked the process, and it really lent itself to drawing and sort of illustrating. And then my last semester of school, I was like, oh shoot, I don't know how I'm going to do this for a career. I need to pivot somehow. So after I graduated, I hopped on YouTube and took the tools that I knew and started learning the Adobe suite, and basically started teaching myself graphic design. Built a illustration graphic design portfolio on the side, after hours, after work, until I was able to land my first graphic design job at a print firm. But it was a digital print firm. It wasn't silk screening, hands-on type of printing. It was more layout based. And ended up, thinking that, I wanted to push it a little bit further and explore branding and marketing. Wasn't a whole lot of that going on where I'm from. So packed up to Nashville, ended up getting a job at a healthcare marketing firm, which is where I met you, and got to learn about the wonderful world of branding and marketing. And I've kind of been doing that for the past, 7-8 years, and kind of needed more of a creative outlet. I kind of wanted to go back and revisit kind of what I was doing in school. I guess what I did was hit up a friend from back home. He's got a band and he was about to put out an album. I said, hey, can I do your album art? He was like, yeah, jump on it. So I used that. I remember sitting down and using that time as a full creative outlet, almost teaching myself how to draw again, because I hadn't really sat down and drawn in years, really. And I really enjoyed the process. Ended up being that piece ended up being got a little bit of attention. I didn't expect it, but made a little bit of noise. Someone from here in Nashville ended up seeing it, reached out. They wanted album art, ended up forming a good relationship with him and his band. It's I can do photography too. I can shoot video. So I ended up going on some weekend runs with them and kind of just using every skill set that I acquired over the past 10 years and putting it into this band. And even then I was thinking wasn't even thinking about illustration. I was I'm working with artists. This is fun. This is a good creative outlet. I want to do this more. and it's kind of just snowballed from there. So like starting out, I was saying, yeah, I could do photography. I can take, photos of your shows. I can do like studio photos. I can edit video. I can do animation. So I was trying to be a jack of all trades at first. And I still sort of am, but it's sort of funneled into more illustration work. And
But you said you were essentially a yes man. You just said yes to everything you could to get your foot in the door. And, to people listening, to me, that is a completely invaluable skill. I mean, learn how to say yes to things, teach yourself the skills that you don't on the fly. And you will be surprised at how many doors open by just saying yes.
yeah, yeah. Cause I mean, well, it was great for them too, because like I knew I wasn't like a professional videographer. Like I was kind of learning as I knew how to work a camera pretty well, and I knew I could like figure it out on the fly. So I was getting time to learn and getting a little bit. I was getting paid for it a little bit, and they were getting a cheaper, videographer. So it was like kind of a win-win. They were on a budget. I needed work, so we were like kind of met halfway there.
You are providing value to them, which is incredibly valuable, especially when it comes to growing a business or growing a side hustle on the front end.
Yeah, and it was just a lot of fun too. So like it was easy to be a yes man because as I was saying earlier, like it was a creative outlet for me. And I was just hanging out with a bunch of cool people too. So it's been great. It's been awesome.
So you got your foot in the door doing these video photo projects and album artwork. You also did the logo for one of my bands, the Foust band, which is awesome. We get compliments on it all the time. Go check it out. Just Google Foust band or go to Spotify. It's the coolest logo ever. I love it. So you've gotten this far. You've been able to get your foot in the door. Well, what came next? You said that it snowballed. How did it snowball?
I guess I guess people liked my illustration work more than my photography, which I'm totally cool with. So yeah, so I was doing uh, like merch jobs, some poster jobs, and then photography jobs. But really, what happened was I was recommended by a friend to do a bluegrass festival poster, and there were a lot of names on there that I was just side note that I was really excited about. So I was like, yes, I want this. Like these are some of my favorite artists. So took that job, and even to this day, it ended up being one of my favorite posters. But I think that poster got my artwork out there, got it displayed on a larger audience, and then it kind of snowballed after that. Some other folks saw it, they reached out for some work, and it's just been good really since that job.
So really, you built some solid relationships. You made a really good impression, and it's just been word of mouth. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's been word of mouth. Really, as far as like marketing goes, like haven't done a whole lot. I try to keep my Instagram page buttoned up and my website buttoned up, but that's really about it. Like I'm on Pinterest and Twitter, but I don't I don't invest a lot of time in those. It's been yeah, mostly word of mouth, which I've been really grateful for. It's been awesome.
Well, that's two things I think that work with word of mouth. One is clearly doing good work, and you do incredible work. And then secondly is being a good hang or being a good person and being good and, interesting and fun to work with. For people listening that want to get into this type of work, those are the two things you'll need. Clearly, you'll need the deliverables, you'll need the good work, but don't underestimate being a good person to your client or being just a good person in general. And I think that that's really made out for you. I know that, we've done a lot of work together, and you're a super fun hang and you're great to work with. To me, that's huge. And I think that you are a case example of that.
Thanks. Yeah, I try to be a nice, good person. Want the process to be as fun as possible. Um, yeah.
So you've done a lot of work outside the music space as well. So tell us a little bit about that and how that's affected the work you do now.
Yeah, I've done a lot of corporate design work, And that can actually be a really cool space to explore animation and illustration. The trick with that is corporate work can be very bureaucratic, and there can be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You don't necessarily have creative freedom that I seek, that I would prefer to seek. But that's kind of been why I seek the freelance as hard as I do.
That actually leads into my next question. When you are a graphic designer, it is always a artist client relationship, no matter the corporate, small business. It always ends up kind of being a person to person. But when you're working with artists, you're working with people who are eccentric, artists being like musicians, me being one, so I can totally speak about those eccentricities. But you're dealing with people that may have larger egos, or that may have, a lot of eccentricity, or be very opinionated in how they want their brand displayed. How do you balance that with your creative output?
So the process working with artists versus working corporate is like, I feel like it is much easier. There's more respect between artists and artists. The musician usually respects my craft, and they understand that they came to me for a specific reason, and I do feel like they really do respect it, and they're just like, you do your thing. Here's some, bullet points or keywords we want you to follow, but you do your thing. So whenever you talk about eccentric personalities and egos, yeah, I can see that being a thing in the art world, but it's never gotten in the way of work and the process. It is, for me personally, and maybe it's just the type of artist and designer that I am, it's much harder in the corporate world.
That's a huge distinction. That's a very big difference. But let's talk about the process. You mentioned the process. What is the process from you signing a new client, a new band or artist that wants you to produce a piece for them? What is the process from that initial signing to the piece being completed? What does that look like?
I try to keep it simple, and usually the client likes that too. So it's just sort of start the discussion off like talking about rates. We try to get the deal down.
So you talk about money right off the gate, right out the door.
Try to, yeah. Just go ahead and get it off the plate. Try to get get down the nitty gritty, get that out of the way. Talk about schedule, due date, and then payment options. And payment options can be negotiable as far as like deposit, or full payment at the end, or whatever. That kind of, I'm pretty lenient about that. Really, at the end of the day, I just like the work, so it's like I don't put payment and money first. Sometimes I probably shoot myself in the foot for that, but whatever. And then so then then after that's all done, we get to talking about kind of the fun stuff, their conceptual ideas. Usually lends itself to like a pretty fun brainstorming phone call. If it's album work, like conversation could be anything. Like a client might have like a concept for an album where each song means something, and maybe they want to release a piece of art to represent that song, and then maybe they want to combine all of those general pieces for the album art. So in a sense, the visuals for each single make up the overarching album theme, just as the songs do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. And I think I think that's an opportunity. If you're an artist listening to this, understand that a piece of album art doesn't have to just be a piece of album art. If it's well crafted and well, constructed and designed, you can turn it into multiple pieces of content. You can turn it into animations. You can turn it into social shares. There's so much cool stuff you can do with it. But really, I think that depends on, the artist, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a discussion that varies per artist. Some artists, like, they're real buttoned down about the legality of how you use the art. Like I said, I just try to keep the process simple. To your point, that is one of the things that I pitched during our deal discussion is like, look, this artwork isn't just going to sit on Spotify. Like, you can use this here, 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 and here. So you're going to get some value out of it.
You bring up a really interesting point, though, about usage and rights. How does that play into your process? Does the artist pay you up front, or when the artwork is complete, does the artist receive full rights? So that means that you can no longer sell, or you can no longer, what do those negotiations look like?
That's usually how it works. That's definitely how I work. You're commissioning me for your project. I'm going to do the work. You're going to pay me. I'm going to hand it off to you. Once you pay for it, it's yours. I think there's probably more of a discussion on how I would use that work afterwards. That's the conversation I'm more interested in. I've worked with some bands that will, after I hand off the deliverables, they have these rules where how I am able to display it. Sometimes you got to put a copyright with it, or I can only display it a number of times on my website. So really, they own the artwork, and then they are gonna set their rules on how it's shared, which I'm totally okay with. Like I said, I look at each piece as a commission piece that I'm giving you something to use and own, and how you use it is none of my business.
So when it comes to the process, what does the back and forth look like when you're in the middle? Do you provide a X number of drafts? Do you set up, meetings in advance? How does the back and forth and approval process look like?
That depends on the client, but usually it's always conversation about concept. Then I go to the drawing board, knock out some sketches, present the sketches, and then we either have an email conversation or phone conversation about the sketches. And then it's just like, either they're like, yeah, these look great, I want to go with this, or can you tweak this, and this, and I'll send a new sketch. Once the sketch is approved, I go to line work, cleaning it up, getting it to where they can really see what's going on, because sometimes these sketches are real messy and, I don't know, they're like a workshop. Like, you don't know what you're looking at sometimes.
Yeah, it's a draft. It's a brainstorm.
Yeah. So these the cleaned up line work goes back to them, sign off, and then I get to like the coloring process and go to the completion stage. Then I'll send it back, and occasionally there'll be some like really small tweaks, but really pretty much after the sketch is approved, it's pretty smooth from there.
Once the artwork's been approved, do you handle the printing? Does the artist handle the printing? Because I think this is one piece that a lot of entry level, artists and illustrators might not have a concept about, like, what do I do with the printing? So how does that work for you?
Yeah, that's been a whole other thing. So I have a degree in printmaking, so I should have a pretty good idea of how this works, but I didn't study, like, I didn't even get on a computer to do artwork in college. Like, I didn't touch a computer. So I'm not too familiar with screen printing and these sort of modern processes. So I was in that boat. How that piece is going to be printed directly affects how you start your work, and how you build it out. So yeah, if you're an entry level illustrator, like, understand how layers and coloring work with screen printing. You can only work with, at most prints, I'm working with only like five colors. So there are tips and tricks to get more colors with the way that you layer them. But having a good understanding of the printing process is number one. And then if you're an illustrator, like there are a lot of illustrators out there that do their own printing. They have screen printing businesses, and they'll do the posters themselves. Me, in my case, I outsource my printing. So yeah, you got to, find a good printer. A lot of times these merch companies will reach out to you for commission work, and you'll be able to find them then. But there's a lot of trial and error there whenever you outsource all your work, especially if you don't have a local printer, because not every screen printing place is good. So you might send your work off and then you get your run and it's like, damn, these are rough. Okay, I'm not going to use them again. Or so it's a little bit trial and error. If you can do it yourself and you know about screen printing, that's the move. Because then you have control over the entire process.
And I'd assume that you would, over the long term, end up making more cash.
Yeah. Then you get printing, and you get paid for printing and production too.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks for joining us on the Do That Music Thing podcast. This is my favorite part of the show, where I get to ask the guest, if someone wants to be in your shoes, if someone wants to be an artist and illustrator specializing in concert posters or album artwork, what are 3 things that they can do today, 3 actionable things that they can do today to enhance and grow their career and be more successful?
Yeah, so I love this. If you're starting out and you don't have clients, you don't have work, make it up. You need a portfolio first. And one of the things that I did whenever I was trying to build a graphic design portfolio was I didn't have any clients. So I got on Behance, created an account, and then just created these fictitious projects. Maybe I was going to rebrand Nike or something, or create a campaign for, I don't know, shoe company, made up my own breweries or whatever. So get a portfolio. You don't have any clients, make up your own work. So number 2 is get a website. You need a place for your portfolio to live. You need a place for your work to live. And you want to look professional. The best way to do that is a website. You can share that with clients. Your clients can share it with potential clients. And then you can share that on your social media pages. So I'm going to house this under website, but get an Instagram account and have that thing cleaned up. Use that as a secondary portfolio, or maybe that's kind of your foot in the door to get someone to your website. And then the third thing is just have a great work ethic and don't be afraid of late nights. I am at a screen, I'm drawing all the time. It's a very time consuming profession, but it's fun. Sitting down and drawing is so many things to me. So you have to love the process, and you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid of it. You can't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to work your ass off, because you're going to have to.
Love that. I hope everyone really takes that one to heart. Work your ass off, because you're going to have to. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
My Instagram, Brandon.Trammel, and then my website, BrandonTrammel.com. Those would be the 2 best places to see my stuff.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you once again for joining us on the Do That Music Thing podcast.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Do That Music Thing podcast. To learn more about me, the host, Christopher Foust, you can catch me online at christopherfoust.com, on Instagram at chrisfaustmusic, or on Twitter at chrisjamesgtr. If you'd like to be a guest on the Do That Music Thing podcast, please feel free to email me at chrisfaustmusic@gmail.com. If you're a fan of the show, head on over and leave us a 5-star review. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris Foust. Let's go do that music thing.